Now let's have a look at some of the remaining status bar options. So I'll start with the selection cycling option, which is quite helpful in selecting the overlapping geometries. Now in this case, we have this drawing, and in this drawing there may be certain geometries which could be overlapping. So I'll zoom into this area, and now if you notice clearly, we have some overlapping objects here. So some of these objects are overlapping on each other. Now in order to clearly identify that, you can take help of selection cycling. So you can click on this selection cycling option on the status bar to turn it on, and if you're not able to see this option selection cycling, then click on the customization and click this selection cycling option. So make sure that this selection cycling option is active. Now once it is active, go to the status bar, turn it on, and now move back to the drawing area. Now whenever a overlapping object will be found in the drawing, you will see this overlapping square icon right beside the cursor. Now simply click and you'll see a list of all of these overlapping objects. So you can move between the first and second object, and if the list has more objects, you can select those objects also, and a preview will be visible in the drawing area also, as you can see here also. So you can select the objects and you can either erase them or you can do other modifications. In this case, I'll simply erase it, and now we can join both of these endpoints. So I'll use line tool and I'll join these two endpoints. Now we have a clean geometry here. Now similarly, let's move to this part of the drawing, and here we have this circle. Now obviously when I move my cursor to this circle, there is no overlapping icon of selection cycling, but when I move it to this circle, we have this overlapping icon. So that indicates that we have two circles or more than two circles on the same center. So let's click here, and we obviously have these two arcs or the circles. So I'll select the second one, which is obviously not the full arc, and it's completely redundant geometry which is not required. So let's erase it, and here we have it, a clean geometry. So in this way, you can use selection cycling to make selections of overlapping objects. Now let's have a look at other status bar options. So I'll go to this customization and I'll select this coordinates option. So as soon as you activate the coordinates option, you'll see on the status bar here, we have these three coordinates visible: the X coordinate, Y coordinate, and the Z coordinate value. And these values will change with the movement of your cursor. So whenever I move my cursor, the coordinates will update itself, and you can see the real time coordinate values from the drawing area. So in this way, you can make a clever approximation of the coordinates simply by moving your cursor to that area. Now let's look at the next option, which is units. So once again, I'll go to the customization and I'll activate this units status bar option, and I'll also turn off this coordinates. Now when you turn on this units option, you'll see this unit status bar which shows the current display unit, which is decimal in this case. So right now all the dimensions will be shown in decimal units. So that simply means whatever the geometry you make, it will be shown as decimals. So I'll check some of the properties of these objects. So I'll select this circle here, and now right click, and I'll go to properties. And now let's have a look at this property palette. Now here we have some of the properties related to this arc or this geometry. For example, we have the radius as 120, 188, start angle, that will be degrees, and the area in square units, and total arc length. So all of these values are currently shown as decimal values. Now let's press escape key and let's change this decimal to architectural. And now let's click on this arc again. Let's look at these properties, and now they are shown as architectural values. Obviously there will be no change in the angles, it's still shown as decimal. And here we have this arc length, area, and all the remaining values. So in this way, you can toggle between the decimal, architectural, or any other remaining options like the engineering, fractional, or scientific, and you can view the values in that unit format. So this is not changing the unit of your actual drawing. This is simply changing the format in which the unit will be displayed. So now let's close this properties palette and I'll go to the customization and I'll deactivate this units option, and let's click on this quick properties option now. Now using this quick properties option, you can bring a small property palette for every object. Now let's say that we want the property palette for all of these objects which we select. So for that, simply click on this quick properties and that will activate the quick property option. Now click on any of the object and this small property palette with some of the important properties or frequently used properties will get listed here. For example, the radius, the coordinates of center point, layer, and all the other information. So you will learn more about this property palette later on in the upcoming modules. So let's close it once again and let's deactivate this quick properties option, and I'll press escape key. So that was all about the selection cycling and other status bar options, which are really helpful and they can be used according to your preferences to make your drawing workflow easier.